reasons on rock and roll music and why I preach against it, and I believe with all of my heart that it is a contributing factor to our juvenile delinquency of today. Why I believe that is because I know how it feels when you sing it. I know what it does to you. And I know the evil feeling that you feel when you sing it.
Well, howdy, folks, and welcome to the Wacky World Drive-In. And with me, as always, my co-host, the man sometimes known as Dick Vincent.
Hey, everybody. Yeah, we're back with another one, and this is going to be a good one.
Yeah, this month, we're gonna be doing basically a music episode. We'd had discussions online as to whether or not we've done a music episode before, and Mr. Vincent pointed out that it was probably one of our mini tangents in which we get on during episodes, a non-music related episode.
Yeah. So this is going to be a fun one. I think we're going to kind of go down all different routes, soundtracks, musicians in movies, and all sorts of cool stuff.
Oh, I actually have notes today. I have a whole little notebook here of notes. So
Oh, cool.
It'll be a little less or a little more structured than the usual nonsense.
Man, that's sure going to be different.
But first I wanted to start with just a quick thing, our top picks of 2020. Just wanted to talk about some of the, since it's a new year, just some of the things we dug from last year. So wanted to start it out. Mr. Vincent, what was your favorite Blu-ray release of last year? And of course, it doesn't have to be a movie released last year, just your favorite release of last year.
Probably my favorite one was last year was from Severin, the Umberto Lenzi, Carol Baker Giallo collection.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that as soon as they announced it, I was just, mega excited. I'd collected that stuff on various dodgy looking bootlegs for years, and it was so great to get this. It's a great set that has, the movies in it, it has CD soundtracks and all sorts of really great extras and commentaries. So I was just like beyond excited to get my hands on this.
I'm glad to hear that Severin is still around and kicking, because nowadays, of course, Vinegar Syndrome is the label that everyone talks about. But I always had a soft spot for Severin.
They're still, they still do, several new releases every month. They announce on a regular basis, and they're still hanging in there. And, back when I was still going to conventions, they were always at the convention. So, yeah, they're still there.
When I was at the height of my DVD buying, I've kind of slacked off somewhat because I have so many things I buy these days. But when I was just kind of at a point when I wasn't really collecting toys as much and I was just buying mostly DVDs, I mean, Severin, that was the company. I have so many Severin DVDs.
Yeah, back in the day, they did all the Black Emanuel stuff, and they're still, like I said, they're still putting stuff out on a regular basis.
Yeah, I have both those Black Emanuel's box sets.
Yeah, I was stupid. I didn't buy those, so I went and collected them all separately later, here and there. But yeah, those I think they announced they're going to revisit them on Blu-ray at some point.
They're not only are they excellent, each one comes with kind of a best of CD soundtrack. Oh, taking it all around, and those CDs are excellent. I'll get to that in the music part, but yeah,
okay,
great stuff. So my Blu-ray release, and this year I've definitely been slacking on the movie buying. It's been toys and comics mostly, but would have to be the only a kind of fancy pants Blu-ray I got this year, and that would be Spookies from Vinegar Syndrome.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, I mean, not just the movie, but the documentary that came with it. I had no idea about the complicated history of that movie and how it's kind of two movies in one. And yeah, there's a lot to that. Very interesting.
Yeah, that's a great release. And it's like a lot of times for movies like that, if they do a nice documentary, that's sometimes just as fascinating as the movie itself.
Yeah, like I would have paid money for that documentary.
Yeah. And, Vinegar Syndrome too, along with Severin, they're one of those companies that it's kind of like every month they put out stuff and they always manage to hit it out of the ballpark.
Those Forgotten Gialli box sets that came out semi-recently, was that Vinegar Syndrome or was that Severin?
Yeah. The first one, it was interesting, but some of the movies you can kind of see why they were forgotten. The second one with it just came out over the Black Friday weekend sale was excellent though.
Okay, good. Yeah, I've heard good things.
But the first one was interesting. It's just it wasn't kind of upper tier stuff.
Nice looking packaging and such.
They always do beautiful packaging. I mean, I'm kind of one of those guys that I'm not one of these people that obsess over slip covers and everything has to be numbered. But I just kind of buy a movie for the content. Once I watch it, I throw an alphabetical order on my shelf. But they do nice slip covers and everything. And
Okay, here's a question off in left field already. We're not even 10 minutes in. Your DVD collection, how do you have it organized? Well, I mean, you said alphabetical, but I mean, is it by genre alphabetical or just a complete everything alphabetical?
like probably a big portion of it is just alphabetical, but then I kind of have sections where I have like all my Dario Argento, all my Fulci, all my Bava, and I have little breakout kind of sections up on the top shelves for all those guys. And it's just mixed up by label and everything. Then everything else is pretty much just A through Z.
Yeah, I do alphabetical as well, but mine's broken up into I have horror, exploitation, and sleaze together in one section. And then I have like martial arts and action in one section and various comedy kind of stuff like that. Things like Boogie Nights in another section, animation in a section, and so on and so on. But my most specific section is I have a Laura Gimser section. And then I have a trailer comps section.
Yeah, I have a separate trailer comp section. And usually what I do, like all my Black Emmanuel movies, I just have them all filed under, I put them all in the E's under Emmanuel. So I don't, if there's a series, I put them under the name series name. And it's something I thought about breaking into genre at this point, but I look at it and I think it is what it is. And I'd never find anything again if I move stuff.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, with my Laura section, I go chronologically. I'm just trying to go from her first movie all the way to her last movie, just in the release in which they came out.
Oh, wow, that's pretty cool. Then I've got like a special, I broke all my Spanish horror stuff out just because that's a favorite of mine. I have that separate, and I have all my adult stuff separate, and yeah.
Okay, so favorite movie of 2020, and not necessarily something that came out in 2020, because I mean 2020, but just your favorite movie you saw for the first time in 2020.
It was probably one. It's from earlier. It's from like the film actually came out in 1981. It's this movie called Diva. And I saw this movie streaming on the Criterion channel called Betty Blue, which just kind of blew me away. And I got on Twitter and kind of made a comment, hey, I just watched Betty Blue and this thing was amazing. Then Rachel Nesbitt replied, hey, if you saw Betty Blue, you need to see Diva. It's amazing. So Kino Lorber had just put it out on Blu-ray. So I said, oh, I can order that. So I got it. And it's just it's kind of like this David Lynch, Alfred Hitchcock, giallo thriller from France, directed by a guy named Jean-Jacques Benex. I'm probably horrible at pronouncing the name, but it's really just this great twisty kind of weird David Lynchian giallo thing that it just sucked me in, and I just thought it was amazing.
Wow, okay, I'll have to keep an eye out for that.
I think it might be on Amazon or something, because I did see it streaming at first, but since I'm a physical media guy, I had to go out and buy the Blu-ray.
Gotcha, okay, and it's called Diva.
Diva, yeah.
Okay, very cool. Yeah, mine, there's actually a couple, but the thing that really stands out in my mind, just the movie I just was slack-jawed watching, was Lady Snowblood.
Oh, those are excellent. Did you watch both of them?
I did, yeah. Yeah, I've actually covered them here on the channel, so I won't go too much into it, but yeah, I was very blown away by that movie and just the Kill Bill-ness of it. Like, I see where a lot of Tarantino's influence came from.
Yeah, that's something that's really cool. Everyone talks about kind of the kung fu movies and martial arts movies, but all those kind of, Japanese and Hong Kong kind of like, I don't know if you call them samurai movies or swordplay movies. There's some amazing stuff there.
And Lady Snowblood is definitely not what I would consider an action movie per se. It's more so of a drama, just with bursts of violence.
Yes.
And then another one I saw, which I also covered on the channel. Again, I was just covering stuff that I saw that I really liked. Was Gwendolyn and the Perils in the Land of the Yik Yak.
Oh, that's a fun one.
Yeah, I liked that one quite a lot.
Yeah, that's what kind of always reminded. It's like a comic book kind of brought to life.
Well, it's based on a comic book.
Yes, I go. That's right, a French comic book, right, or something.
I believe so. Yeah,
Yeah,
or European at very least.
Yeah, it was very kind of heavy metal like to me.
Yeah, good stuff. And speaking of Severin, I'm pretty sure I think it's a Severin special edition that I have.
Oh, yes, they did do it. I've got an old DVD that somebody put out, and I haven't upgraded to the Severin yet. Yeah, and it's got the what's her name in it from the Whitesnake videos.
Yeah, Tawny Katane.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, really good. And as I said, the guy in that one is the scoundreliest of the scoundrels. Like, those movies often have your Han Solo type character, but Brett Huff's character in that movie, he is just the scoundreliest of all of them.
He is, yeah. That is a fun movie.
All right, so before we get into the meat and potatoes of the episode, I thought something would be fun. I pulled up some rock and roll quotes, just some weird rock quotes, and I thought I would give you the quote and maybe like a little multiple choice and see if you can figure out who said what quote. We'll just do a couple.
Oh, a game, yeah.
We haven't done a game in a while.
Okay, sure. Go
First
for it.
Quote. They'd say if you play the record backwards, you can hear evil things like grr. And I think, geez, I didn't know the devil sounded like that. I thought he was coherent like the rest of us. So who do you think said this? Was it A, Eddie Money, B, Brian Johnson of AC/DC, or C, Tom Araya from Slayer?
I'm going to go with someone totally out of left field. For this one, I'm going to go with Eddie Money.
It was actually Brian Johnson from
AC/DC.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I kind of threw the Eddie Money in there just to kind of throw you off the track.
And that's what you did.
Yeah.
I know that Rob Halford from Judas Priest has a quote similar to that, too. That's who I was waiting for the name to come up.
Okay. Okay, next one. It's boring to be 70. I don't want to be there. I'll be dead and gone. I don't have any aspirations to be 70. Was that Freddie Mercury, Kurt Cobain, or Jimi Hendrix?
Jimi Hendrix.
That was Freddie Mercury.
Oh, man, I'm blowing it today.
Yeah. Yeah, the imaginary prize. It's not looking like you're going to get it. Okay, here's a good one. Okay. I can never quite understand cocaine. You can't get a hard on, you can't sleep, and you grind your teeth. I'll just say F because YouTube standards. What the F is good about that? Was that Axl Rose, Prince, or John Bon Jovi?
I'm going to guess John Bon Jovi.
There you go. You got it.
Oh, okay. I kind of did the elimination because I knew that both Axl Rose and Prince were, not that I want to, but I always heard that they were kind of really indulged in the powder. So that's why I guess John Bon Jovi.
Yeah, I thought that was such a weird quote because John Bon Jovi, he's such a clean, squeaky clean, kind of clean cut rocker. Just to hear him say a quote like that, especially with the F-bomb in it, I was like, oh, that's good.
That's true, yeah.
Okay. A kid once said to me, do you get hangovers? I said, to get hangovers, you have to stop drinking. Who said that? Was it Alice Cooper? Was it Lemmy? Or was it Steven Tyler?
I'm going to go with the Coop on this one just because I love Alice Cooper. So I'm going to guess Alice Cooper.
I do indeed, but that one was Lemmy.
Oh, okay. Okay.
All right. So I guess we'll actually get into the episode now. And we would start, and I kind of had the idea to do a music episode. I just didn't know what direction to take it. And then Mr. Vincent swooped in and saved the day and kind of broke this down into specifics of what we're actually going to do. And so the first section would be movie scores. Let's just talk about some of our favorite movie scores and composers of said scores.
Oh, okay. Probably the first movie scores I really kind of heard the score and thought I want to own this would be the John Carpenter stuff.
Right. I could be mistaken, but I want to say the first movie score I actually bought on CD was Halloween.
Oh yeah, I remember because I saw them at the theaters back in the '80s when they were coming out. It was kind of like, I bought all the usual records, a teenage kid would buy. But yeah, I was also kind of always looking for soundtracks, and they were always hard to find.
Yeah.
Like I remember, I saw The Thing and thought, ooh, I want to go, and to me it was like, okay, there's music. It should be on a record. It should be easy to find. But it was always a bit, when pre-internet days, it was always a bit of a challenge tracking down soundtracks.
And then you would often run into the problem of, especially with catalogs and stuff like that, it would say so and so soundtrack. And you didn't know if it was the soundtrack or if it was the score. Because there would often, some movies would have multiple releases where it'd be the songs from the movie or it would be the actual accompanying score.
Yeah, and also too, what happened to me a couple times, one of the things I was collecting was the Morricone stuff. And my dad took me to see like re-releases of the Man with the Spaghetti, the Man with No Name movies, like Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. And I'd go find, look at this, it's the sound, and you look and you'd take it home and put it on and be like, this isn't the music. Then you'd look at it, and it would be like performed by the so-and-so Hollywood Orchestra or something. And it's like, oh, I was burned.
Yeah. I ran into that same problem several years back when I first started really getting deep into the spaghetti westerns. I wanted the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly soundtrack, but every listing I would find for it was performed by, not the original score.
Yeah. It's hard. There's been so many recordings of that. The Leone stuff is really hard to find. I mean, the age of CD, it's a little easier, but there's so many just, Muzak versions of that stuff out there.
That's a good term for it, that Muzak, yeah. Yeah, we were talking before. Another one of mine is I've always wanted the score for Return of the Living Dead. The soundtrack is readily available, but I want that score, that theme when it starts raining, the trioxin down on the graveyard, the Return of the Living Dead song piece. I've always wanted that, but never been able to find it. Only the soundtrack with like the punk stuff.
I don't know if they ever did a score. I remember that was one of the ones that that had the Cramps song in it, and I was like so deep into the Cramps when that movie came out that was one I just ran out and bought. And that was one that was like, because it had the songs on it, it was readily available, so you could easily go buy it at your record store, I remember.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not knocking the soundtrack at all. That's a great soundtrack. I've just always wanted that score, or at least that piece. I just wish they would do some release of the soundtrack with that theme, the Return of the Living Dead theme on it.
Oh, yeah, that's odd they haven't brought that out yet, considering how popular that movie is, and it's been released on, Blu-ray and DVD 1,000 times.
When I was making the notes for this episode, I basically wrote down just off the top of my head, my 4 favorite score composers. And that would be Fabio Frizzi, or Frizzi, I'm sure it's Frizzi, Nico Fendinko? Nico Fendinko. Sorry, Ricardo. Of course, John Harrison. Absolutely love John Harrison's work. And then Chuck Sereno, who I've mentioned on the pod several times, way too many times before.
Oh, wow. Those are great choices. Yeah, I would probably just, keep the first 2. Then I'd put in Morricone and probably John Carpenter.
Oh, yeah, I
love his scores. Yeah.
Great choice. I guess I do have that Halloween soundtrack somewhere, but it's not really a go-to. Yeah, I need to buy some John Carpenter stuff. Yeah, I mentioned John Harrison. The Dawn of the Dead is a great soundtrack. Don't get me wrong. The piece, the opening Dawn of the Dead song is great, but I find myself listening to the Day of the Dead soundtrack way more than I do the Dawn of the Dead soundtrack.
Oh, yeah. I do the Goblin music, or
the Goblin of
yes,
John Harrison.
Yeah. And it's weird because I just brought the big set that came out from England with and you listen to the Argento version and it's almost all Goblin.
Right.
Yeah. So that is cool.
Yeah, that Day of the Dead soundtrack. I don't know. I have that double CD set from La La Land Records. I have the vinyl too, but don't have a record player still. But yeah, I've listened to that so many times. I don't know, because it's spooky, but it's also so tropical. Like Harrison definitely did a real tropical vibe to Day of the Dead. I
Yeah,
love that one.
I've got the vinyl that was re-released like last year, I think by Waxworks Records or a couple years ago. But I need to get that CD because I do love that score too.
I actually checked for a friend the other day, and it's still available. It's still available on the La La Land Records website as of well last weekend.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I know that they do stuff in kind of limited editions.
Right, right, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, they've done some cool stuff. I think I got one for the ones that did the Johnny Quest soundtrack, I think from the old cartoon.
Oh yeah, they do a lot of random
Yeah,
obscure stuff like that. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. So I got that.
and I'd mentioned Fabio Frizzi. Oh, another great one. And I have to say, the Zombie 2 theme. To me, that is the all-time greatest zombie movie piece of music ever written.
Oh, it is. Yeah, yeah. And it's kind of like when you go by, there was one, I remember I bought one. It was back when CDs were first coming out and it said, oh, music from Zombie. And I bought, and it didn't have that music in it. It's like, what the heck?
Yeah, I have a really strange one. It's the first half is New York Ripper, and then there's some weird covers by that guy Steven Romano, who I guess he's a writer, and he put out a trailers comp himself
Yeah,
several
I've got
years
that.
back.
Yeah, shock something or
Yeah,
something. Yeah.
that guy. And then the last half is the Zombie 2 stuff. And then I think some more odd cover stuff at the end. A very strange release, but a good one. And it really I got that before I'd seen New York Ripper. And so when I finally did see New York Ripper, I knew the music so well from that CD because it's a great soundtrack.
That is a cool soundtrack. Yeah. Another one I've always liked too was the music from Shockwaves, the underwater Nazi zombie movie. A guy named Richard Einhorn
Hmm.
did all the kind of, it's very kind of like, not really synthy, but just kind of more sound than music. But it's a really good soundtrack too.
Okay. Yeah, I've still have yet to see that movie.
Oh man, that's a must.
And going on the non-horror side of things, because been a little horror centric here. Of course, Nico, try again, Fendenko did a lot of the Black Emmanuel stuff, and I absolutely love his work. It's probably actually my favorite on this list that I've mentioned. Those Black Emmanuel soundtracks that came with the Black Emmanuel's box, the kind of just their best of albums. And I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
they are so good. I've listened to those hundreds of times.
I got a really cool box set that came out from Beat Records that has all the Black Emmanuel soundtracks in a nifty little slipcase and everything.
Yeah, I remember you showing me that, and I remember wanting it, and it was like pretty expensive, and I didn't have the spare cash at the moment. And it's long out of print now, I bet.
Yeah, I bet you if Severin does the box set though, they'll do a soundtrack set again though.
Yeah, yeah, you're probably right.
And but going back to Romero a second too, even though it's mostly all library music, I really like the soundtrack to the original Night of the Living Dead too.
Oh, right, right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
even though it's all basic, they just, library tracks, it's used very effectively, I have thought.
It's funny when people think of Dawn of the Dead, they often think of that song, The Gonk. You know, da 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 da.
Yeah.
That was a library track as well.
Yeah, there is quite a few little, I guess the kind of the Romero cut of the movie used a lot more library music, and the Argento cut, which they called Zombie, has more of the Goblin stuff in it. And of course you got a Goblin too, with all the Argento stuff, like the Deep Red and all the soundtracks they did. That's some really amazing stuff too.
Yeah, I own that one. I own Deep Red. I have Suspiria. But Suspiria, was that Goblin proper, or was that just one of the guys from Goblin?
That's Goblin proper because the keyboard player, what's his name now? Because I've seen him a few times, and there's like Goblin, which is all the guys but the keyboard player, who is the main guy in Goblin. Then the keyboard player tours on his own.
Okay.
So it's kind of like you have dueling goblins out there. But I've seen them both recently, and it's really cool because they play the music and they'll have a screen and back and run the movie scenes and everything.
Very nice.
Mm.
Yeah, another really good one is Demons.
Yes, that's a great soundtrack too. Yeah.
I forget off the top of my head who did that one though, but I own it. But yeah, that's a good soundtrack.
And I always liked the opera, Terror at the Opera, the Argento one too, which was done, and I don't know his name offhand, but it was the keyboard. Claudio Simonto, I think is his name. The keyboard player from Goblin did that
Oh
soundtrack.
yeah, that's it. Claudio Simonetti, Simon.
So, yes, that's it. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, it's good stuff. And back with Nico before, I think, I mean, all the Black Emanuel movies have, really all the kind of late 70s to 80s softcore movies just have great kind of, I don't want to say tropical, but just very that world music, sort of new agey-ish music. It's all really good stuff. But
I
I
love that stuff. Yeah.
the Emmanuel and the Last Cannibals soundtrack really stands out in my mind. And then, of course, the Divine Emmanuel one has a great score as well.
Yeah, back in the 90s, I was working at Borders bookstore, and all these CDs were coming out of all these compilation soundtrack stuff of, like, music from the sexy Italian thrillers and I was just buying all that stuff, and they're just great to put on and listen to.
Definitely. I have a boombox in the bathroom. And like whenever I'm getting ready or taking a bath, because I'm a fancy lad and I take baths, yeah, I always have music playing.
Oh, that's cool. Is that what you play?
Oh, I play all kinds of stuff, but yeah, I love doing that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's very bath friendly music.
It is. Yeah, yeah. It's fun. It's just fun music. Yeah, great stuff.
Oh man, talk about CDs I've listened to so much I worry they're going to fall apart, and that is the Vampiros Lesbos soundtrack.
Oh yeah, the Jess Franco stuff is. I think the guy who composed a lot of the stuff is Daniel White.
Mhm.
I'm not sure if he did the Vampire Lesbos stuff, but yeah, that's really cool too.
Yeah, the Vampires Lesbos was done by its two names, and it's like very Germany sounding, like Schweinfurt and Hans or
Oh,
something.
yeah,
Yeah, something. Yeah, that's a great soundtrack, and I'm a big fan when soundtracks don't necessarily fit the theme of the movie, so to speak. Like going back to Day of the Dead, as I said, it's very, even though it's spooky, it's very tropical with lots of very kind of tropical islandy kind of music, and that just the
yeah.
contrast to me I really like. And again with Vampires Lesbos, it's all that weird experimental acid jazz and kind of early swingy rock and roll type stuff that you just wouldn't expect in a vampire movie. I like that contrast.
Yeah, a lot of the Jess Franco soundtrack stuff is really cool. He always kind of went for the avant-garde. There's, like you said, a lot of jazz stuff, and that's the kind of stuff when you watch the movie. I mean, if you just listen to it, you think, what is this doing in this? What would this be doing in a movie? But you watch it in the movie and it works perfect.
Yes, it does. And going back to Carpenter, say, let's take Escape from New York, for example. I mean, that's a great score and kind of like oddly spooky in parts. I love the synthiness of it. And I mean, it's got that driving, like, it's action, but at the same time, I think it could have been slipped into a scary movie as well.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. His stuff is very atmospheric. You listen to it, it's great for turning out the lights. Any of his scores are, and just laying on the couch and just listening to that stuff.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, I'm a big fan of synthy soundtracks. That's one thing about modern horror that's I don't appreciate as much as to me the synthy stuff just sets so much better a mood. Strings and piano pieces just are never get the same vibe for me.
Yeah, yeah. There's this great label. Follow them on Twitter. It's called Spun Out Sounds, and they're from England. And every month they do like one or two new releases, and it's all different like musicians that they use, but they do like a fake synthy soundtrack to an imaginary movie.
Right? Don't they do a lot of cassette releases?
Yeah, I happen to have a cassette player in my stereo, so I can. But that seems to be for something that's for some odd reason is making a comeback as cassettes. But all their releases are cassettes, yeah, and they do like editions of they do like 80 of them or something.
Yes. Speaking of cassettes, I read that last year cassettes sold the most they've sold since kind of the last year they were popular.
Huh.
I mean, it wasn't a huge amount, but compared to the last 20 years or so, it was a significant amount of cassettes sold last year.
That's really odd to me. I mean, I guess it's a retro thing. I mean, I'll, listen, when I think a lot of times record albums there are quite a few examples of a record album sounding better than a CD. Plus it's just something cool about holding the album, like the soundtrack album in your hand, the big, thing, and you can read all the liner notes.
Mm-hmm.
But I just don't understand what the advantage of having a cassette is.
Yeah, the sound's not good. As soon as that little piece of foam or felt or whatever it is comes out, the sound warbles. They break easy. Yeah, I'm not really a cassette fan either.
Even the case breaks easy. I swear, man. I look at a cassette case cross-eyed and it breaks.
Yeah, that's definitely a nostalgia thing right there.
Maybe that's what it is, yeah.
But I will not knock any buying of physical media.
No, that's true. I'm not. I mean, I bought them. I have like a big, huge pile of them on my bookshelf, so I buy them. But
yeah, like anything that's not digital, I'll support.
Yes, yeah.
Even if they want to bring back 8 tracks, if it's not digital, I'm good.
Yeah, I know some indie bands have done 8 tracks.
Right. So moving from scores, let's jump to songs from movies. And I tell you, that is a lost art. And something I've talked about online many times is movies having a theme song. I miss that so much. I mean, that was something. You knew a good 80s movie if it had a theme song, especially if the theme song mentioned the title of the movie in the song.
That's true. Yeah. I didn't even think about that, but that is something that is kind of a lost.
Yeah, I was on and again, it comes back to Jay. Super awesome. I did a little short thing for his channel where I was talking about Chud 2. And for me, one of the highlights of Chud 2 is the Bud the Chud little theme song. And it just says the name, the Bud the Chud, over and over again. Great stuff.
Yeah, the one I always remember is from one of the ninja movies that came out. They had the ninja.
Right.
So,
I think that was Enter the Ninja, wasn't it?
That was right. Yeah, I think that was the first one, Enter the Ninja. I just remember it, ninja.
Yeah. And it kind of built the strength of the ninja. Yeah. Oh yeah, that's good stuff. That is good stuff. I wrote down some of my favorite songs from movies here, not necessarily theme songs, but just that really stood out to me, even though one of them is, and we'll start with that one, the Big Trouble in Little China song.
Oh, yeah.
With John Carpenter. He actually sings it with that one part, and then someone else sings the other part. Oh, man, I thought that song was so cool as a kid. I mean, it would get me hyped up.
Yeah, that is a good one.
But it always comes back to Kurt. With that one, there's the 2 vocal parts, kind of a higher pitched one and a deeper vocal part. I forget who did. I think Carpenter's the deeper voice. But as a kid, for some reason in my brain, I thought it was Kurt was singing the deeper part and then Wang was singing the higher part. And for some reason, it clicked in my brain, and it was the 2 dudes from the movie singing that song.
Oh, wow.
Tell you another one, and this is probably my favorite song from a martial arts film, and that's High Upon High by Jackie Chan.
Oh, yeah. I forgot all about that. I
love that song. And a lot of people don't know that Jackie Chan is a singer, and he's had not only songs of his own, kind of his hand in the music business as well. Like, if I'm not mistaken, he put together a boy band at one point. But yeah, that High Upon High song, I think it's from the Armor of, I don't know. Let me know, Al. I forget which one it is. But yeah, High Upon High. Look that up if anyone listening hasn't heard that song. It is great.
It's not from the second Armor of God movie, is it?
I think
Operation Condor?
I think it might be. I think you're right.
Yeah. I should know since I just got that Blu-ray a while ago and watched it, but I think that's what it's from.
Yeah, that song, man, that song's so good. And then another one I just love to this day, and just every time I hear it, it makes me happy inside. And that's Mind Over Matter by E.G. Daily from Summer School.
Oh, yeah, I love E.G. Daily.
I do too. And just that scene where it's a montage. It's them taking that test. And that little song plays. Oh, just love it. Brings back so many good memories. And just a great song. I love E.G. I love her voice, her speaking voice, her singing voice. Just everything about E.G. is excellent.
Yeah, and that's something else that kind of seems to be not only songs written for specifically for a movie, but it seems to be kind of a lost art of using older songs or songs that weren't necessarily for that movie and putting them into the movie plot and having them work well. A lot of times it just seems like people throw a bunch of random songs into the movie.
Yeah, that is a very popular thing to do these days.
I mean, I think Quentin Tarantino does it really well.
He does.
But nowadays it just seems like, oh, we have a movie that takes place in 1990. Let's throw a bunch of 90s pop music in there. And there's no you watch it and the music's in the background, but it doesn't tie into what's going on the screen at all.
Right.
Yeah.
Speaking of Tarantino, a great example, moving things right full circle, is in Jackie Brown. He actually uses a piece from Vampiros Lesbos in Jackie Brown.
Yes, that's one of the fun things about watching his movies is he takes those little bits and pieces of soundtracks. There's a ton of that in Kill Bill movies, pieces from Hong Kong movies and Japanese movies and things like that he just inserts in.
The cool kids often like to rag on Tarantino, talking about him ripping this off and him ripping that off. But with Tarantino, his influences are so on his sleeve. I mean, he is so open and admits to all this stuff he loves. I just don't view it that way.
Oh, yeah. Like you were just talking about Jackie Brown. One of my favorite Tarantino moments is that opening Jackie Brown with Pram Grier walking, and it's got Across 110th Street is playing. I mean, that's just like cinema gold to me.
Totally agree. In that scene, that could be such a boring scene, but just that song really just brings it to life. And wow, I mean, it just, yeah, like you said, cinema gold just because of the choice of that song and that scene.
Yeah. And I thought he did an excellent job too in the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. The songs were just so well done and their placement in it. It's like you said, it's popular to rag on him these days, but I think his past few movies have been just great.
And really, we would not have the cinema world we have without Tarantino. I mean, sure, he took a lot of influence and kind of built upon things, but Pulp Fiction changed the movie world. I don't care what anyone says.
Yes, yeah. That kind of opened up this whole, sometimes you could argue for better or worse, but it did bring on a whole flood of these kind of indie films.
Yeah.
Yeah, great stuff. Yeah. And kind of one other thing, we were talking about music and movies too. Another favorite of mine is Repo Man.
Oh, that is a fantastic soundtrack. Great movie too.
Yeah, that was one of those ones where I think I saw it on cable first and I heard the soundtrack, and when Iggy Pop came on, I said, okay, I gotta go find this.
And that movie, if I'm not mistaken, I'm not mistaken, that Mike Nesmith had some kind of, I think he produced it or was an executive producer or something.
It was done through his production company. A couple years ago, he actually came to a theater here and they ran Repo Man, and he did a little introduction. He was there and gave a little talk beforehand, and it was really cool.
Repo Man's one of those movies. I didn't see that until I was in my late teens, and just Repo Man, and then the cover it didn't look like something that would be very interesting to me. I don't know. I just didn't know what it was going to be. But then when I saw that movie, I was just blown away by, I mean, just the uniqueness of it and the entertainingness of it, just everything. There was such a counterculture feel to that movie, but it was like a genuine kind of counterculture feel. It wasn't like, oh, look at us be angsty and stuff. It just felt very organic.
It did, yeah. Oh, and speaking of the director too, Alex Cox, have you ever seen Straight to Hell?
No. Mm-mm.
It's this really weird thing he did. I think it's from, I want to say, the late 80s, like 87. And it's kind of like this. If you like spaghetti westerns, you should definitely see it. It's got Joe Strummer from The Clash.
Okay.
It's got Courtney Love. Elvis Costello shows up. Grace Jones shows up. I think Dennis Hopper pops in. It's about it's a modern day, it's a contemporary setting movie, but it's about these guys who rob a bank and they end up in this really weird little dusty Western town and all this stuff starts happening. But it's like a homage to spaghetti Westerns.
Wow. Okay.
Then it's got guys from the Pogues in it. Then it's got the soundtrack has people like the Pogues and everything doing spaghetti Western music.
Wow. And you said it's called Straight to Hell?
It's called Straight to Hell. I think it's out on Blu-ray. Someone brought it out. I want to say Kino Lorber, but it's definitely worth a watch.
Okay, I will definitely keep an eye or two out for that one.
Yeah, but same guy who did Repo Man, Alex Cox.
That perfectly transitions me into my next bullet point here. Good job. And that is musicians in movies. Musicians who started acting, or yeah, let's say
Yeah.
musicians who start acting. A perfect example, and one that I always come back to, is Gene Simmons. I think Gene Simmons is a vastly underrated actor. I really enjoyed his Hollywood period. He makes a great villain.
Yeah, I think we mentioned it before, but I love that movie he did with Tom Selleck with the little robot bugs.
Yeah,
Runaway. Yeah,
Yeah,
we may
I
have.
think we did. Yeah,
Yeah, he's excellent in that.
and then the one where he plays an Israeli terrorist, I think, is Wanted Dead or Alive, or Dead or Alive, or something like
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's really good in that too.
Well, he's got the look. He's got the
Yeah.
eyes and everything, and very sinister look even without the kiss makeup on. And I always really enjoyed David Bowie too.
Right, right.
Playing
Yeah.
the Man Who Fell to Earth, and I love The Hunger.
I don't think I've seen that one.
Oh, it's a really weird vampire movie, and kind of just a thing I popped into my mind. I remember once back in the video store days, finding seeing the video for Monster Dog.
Oh, yeah.
Starring Alice Cooper. I thought,
Yeah.
Alice Cooper in a movie called Monster Dog? This has to be friggin' great. And I took it home, and it's like they dubbed Alice Cooper's voice.
Yeah, I watched that over this past October, and yeah, it's so weird hearing the Coop dubbed with a voice that sounds nothing like him.
Yeah, it's an Italian movie, so they post up all those. But I remember running home with that VHS. Oh man, Monster Dog, this has got to be good. Alice Cooper and Monster Dog, and I put it in. Oh, I mean, it's still a neat movie, but it was kind of disappointing not to hear the Coop's voice.
Yeah, same thing. When I saw it as a kid, I was quite let down, but then when I saw it as an adult, I appreciated it.
Yeah.
I'll tell you one of my favorite examples, and this is an odd one. It's kind of left field, and that's Adam Ant. He played a villain in my favorite post-apocalyptic movie, which I'm still hoping gets some kind of release. I heard it was released on German Laserdisc at one point, but that's it. And that's World Gone Wild.
Oh, I've never seen that.
And Adam Ant plays the leader of the bad guys. It's this religious cult. And he's like he's friendly, but very vacant. And it's just an odd, creepy, awesome performance. And yeah, it's a great movie, and Adam Ant is excellent in that.
Oh, wow. One kind of from left field I always loved is the band Spandau Ballet. They were kind of the synthy 80s British band. The two brothers in it, Brian and Jeremy Kemp, they were twins. And they were in this movie called The Craze, which is about these real life story about these 60s gangsters they were twins who kind of ruled London. And they're just beyond brutal in it. And it's one of those things when you watch the movie and then you listen to something like True, you can't get that out of your mind.
Yeah. Wow. Oh, interesting. Yeah, I haven't heard of that one either.
Yeah, and another one that just popped into my head too that I haven't seen in forever. That used to be on cable a lot. There's a movie called Roadside Prophets.
Okay.
With John Doe from X and Adam Horowitz from the Beastie Boys. It's a road movie about these two motorcycle guys traveling across the country.
Oh, okay.
And that's
Yeah,
really cool. That's one that just popped into my head too.
Yeah, I tend to like kind of those road movie type movies.
Yeah, and it's got, like I said, John Doe from X and Adam Horowitz from the Beastie Boys.
Oh. And speaking of kind of punk type people, Lee Ving from Fear. He did a bit of acting back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
Like he was in, of course, Nightmares, which is one of my favorite anthology films, maybe my favorite 80s anthology film. Well, it depends. When did Monster Party come out? I mean, Monster Club. Was that late 70s or was that early 80s?
I think it was early 80s, wasn't it?
Okay, well, then Monster Club would be my favorite 80s anthology. but Nightmares is definitely a close second.
Yeah, that's got some good stuff in it.
But then he was also in Clue. He played Mr. Body.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So I thought that was neat.
Then I always liked, too, Debbie Harry in Videodrome.
Oh, yeah. Very good. Very excellent. Yeah, I thought she really could have gone a lot more with her acting career. I don't know why it didn't go any further.
Yeah, and that's, somebody else that I kind of think of in that light is Joan Jett.
Hmm.
She was in that Light of Day movie, which I kind of like. It's, this about, brother and a sister in a band trying to make it big with Michael J. Fox, but she's really good in it. She's got a great look and a great presence, and, maybe it just never interested her acting, but I always thought she could have really made something out of a screen career.
Oh, that's interesting. I haven't seen that since I was a kid. I'd forgotten about that movie.
I like the movie. It's just a
Wow.
good basic kind of, rock and roll feel good movie.
Yeah, thinking about it, or musicians acting and stuff, that was kind of a thing in the 80s. I mean, I guess it happens this day as well, but not like it did then.
Well, I guess with maybe MTV and stuff, they kind of figured it was easy for them to make the transition. But yeah, they did pop up a lot.
And of course, I've got to mention one of my favorites, John Michael Thor, the heavy metal musician.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, he was Thor, and then he did Rock and Roll Nightmare, and then Zombie Nightmare as well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, apparently too. I don't know if you've ever seen his documentary that I Am Thor, which is a great documentary. That's actually what made me a fan. I'd never really heard his music, but I just caught that documentary and I was like, wow, this guy's music is excellent. And I started digging deeper into his like catalog and then his movies and stuff. But apparently, according to that, he kind of was stopping music because he thought he was going to be a big actor. He
Oh,
actually was
really?
supposed to play the Thor character in that movie, Adventures in Babysitting,
Yeah.
and he thought that was just going to be his big break, and he for some reason didn't get the role after all and just kind of spiraled after that and just kind of disappeared into obscurity.
Wow. Huh. That's an interesting fact. Huh.
Have you seen Rock and Roll Nightmare?
I saw it years ago, I believe.
And then there's Zombie Nightmare. I think that's the title of it, the one with Tia Carrera. It might have been her first role or one of her first roles. And he's like this good-natured, long-haired guy that some bad-natured teens accidentally kill, and he comes back as a zombie, and he's kind of taking them out one by one.
Oh, okay. Okay. Huh. I haven't seen that one either. Somebody else I think that has a great presence in movies too is Henry Rollins.
Okay, yeah, I haven't seen a lot of his work.
Yeah, he was in Heat, I know. And he's just one of those guys that I think is just, kind of very easily kind of command the screen.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know a lot of the Chili Peppers folks have done quite a bit of acting. Most famously, Flea was in Back to the Future 2 and 3.
Yeah, and he was in this really cool movie directed by Penelope Spears from back in the 80s, I believe, called Suburbia.
I've heard the name.
It's about all these kind of punk kids who they all come from like, bad home situations or broken homes, and they all run away and they go to live in this abandoned section of track housing in LA that's going to have a freeway put through it eventually. And they just kind of squat in this house. And it's really a great one. They go out and steal stuff from people's refrigerators and garages and stuff. It's a great little movie.
Is it like a drama, a comedy?
Drama.
Okay.
Yeah. Because some of the neighbors of the neighborhood start going after him and hunting him down, and it's a sad movie, but it's really good.
Well,
And he
speaking of
plays one of the punks in it. Flea does, one of the kids.
okay, speaking of Penelope Spheres or Spheres, however you say it, this episode I might have to title it the episode where we can't pronounce anyone's last names or something to that effect. But yeah, let's talk about rock and roll documentaries and that kind of stuff. And of course, that leads me to Decline of the Western Civilization, Part One and Part Two.
Yes, yeah. Those things are just, especially the first one, because I wasn't that aware of LA Punk before I saw that movie, and I saw that, and that was just some really cool stuff.
Well, I find the second one very entertaining, even with the creative liberties she took with that movie. And I'd seen the first one when I was an early teen and loved it and just thought it was so cool. But then when I saw it again as an adult, I just couldn't help thinking in the back of my mind how much of this is staged, like how much of this is real, how much of this is fake.
Oh, yeah.
But regardless of that fact, the second one, even with the stage stuff, I enjoy it so much.
Yeah. And I don't think there was the third one, which I don't think I've ever seen.
Yeah, the third one didn't sound music based. It's just about like homeless punk kids or something, like not a
Oh,
music
okay.
movie. Yeah, it did not sound entertaining.
Yeah, I know they came out with, I think Shout Factory did a box set of all three of
Mm.
them. But yeah, yeah, those are good movies, though.
Like the famous Chris Holmes scene in the second one where he's in that pool
Oh,
supposedly drinking the vodka. It's just water. Like the whole thing is fake. And like the scene where Ozzy is making breakfast, it's not even his house.
yeah, yeah. Well, I guess it's more entertainment than fact.
Exactly, exactly. And it's very entertaining. I just love all the stuff. Like all the people like, "Oh, I'm gonna make it. I'm definitely gonna make it." But what if you don't? "Oh, I'm gonna."
Yeah.
You did. You
Yeah,
didn't.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And speaking of, this is a fake documentary, but I think I got to mention Spinal Tap too.
Oh, yeah. Great.
Yeah.
One of my all-time favorites.
Yep.
That's one of those movies that just never gets old for me.
It doesn't, even though you can quote like every line in that
Mm.
movie practically, when you watch it, it's still funny no matter how many times.
People often refer to stuff as Spinal Tap moments, and I guess from being a musician for 20 plus years, there's so much relatable stuff in that movie. I mean, so many scenes. I'm like, yes, exactly. Up, that's how it is. I mean, someone knew their stuff when they were writing that movie. Someone had been in bands.
Oh, yeah. Well, I know that they've never, I know, said which band it was, but they do say they based a lot of it on actual band experiences.
Mm.
Yeah.
Any guess who?
People have said it's Saxon.
Saxon. Okay, wow.
Yeah, and I've also heard that they took some stuff from Black Sabbath, that point in Black Sabbath history when Ian Gillian sang for him for Born Again.
Right.
There's some stuff from that, but yeah, the thing that's I always enjoyed about that movie was that when you watch the beginning of the movie, they all end up like one after another have herpes sores.
Yeah.
And then there's an outtake from the movie where I believe it's Lita Ford was in this band that was opening for them, and she showed up with a herpes sore. Then after that, all the other guys in Spinal Tap got herpes sores.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one has a very early Fran Drescher appearance.
Yeah, she plays that really annoying record
Yeah.
executive lady. How
Mhm.
you doing, guys?
Yeah. Yeah, that is a great movie. So what is some of your favorite like rock or just music based documentaries, real or mock, other than Spinal Tap?
I still enjoy a lot of the ones I saw as a teenager. They would had these midnight movies where I grew up where they would take old rock docs and run them at midnight on Saturday. So when all the stoned people could come and watch them and sit in the movie theater. I just remember watching stuff like Woodstock in there and Song Remains the Same and everything. Like for Woodstock, we used to sneak a little fifth of liquor in or a little pint of liquor, and we would do shots every time someone came on the screen that was dead.
Oh, wow.
Janis Joplin, she's dead. Got to do a shot.
Shot. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. That's funny. Yeah, I mean there's a lot of them I really enjoy. As I mentioned, the I Am Thor documentary, highly recommended. I mean it's endearing, it's funny. It's I mean I definitely enjoyed the Anvil
Oh
documentary.
yes, that's the one I was trying to think of was the Anvil one. I thought was just so. I mean, it was sad in some ways, but it was really just kind of that guy's one,
Yeah.
determined. Like, I'm, working in a catering business
Mhm.
now, but I'm
Yeah.
gonna make this work. I thought that was a really good one.
The Thor one is a lot like that, but in my opinion, a little better. It's that same sort of feel, funny at times, sad at times, but yeah, that's a good one. So I highly
Yes.
recommend that one. Let's see. There's a Twisted Sister one. We Are Twisted Sister, or something to that effect, that I've seen a couple times. It was pretty good.
Oh, I haven't seen that one.
Yeah. Yeah, well, Dee Snider is an amusing fella. So, of course, he has some amusing anecdotes, and just his perspective on things is often quite amusing.
Yeah, he's one of those guys you figure's got to have about a million stories.
Yeah, definitely. And I'll tell you the
Oh,
reverse
I
of
like the one they did a few years back on Lemmy.
Yeah, that was a good one too.
Where
I'm
they
not
kind of
even,
just followed him around, went to the Rainbow Bar with him and everything. And
yeah, I'm not even a Motorhead fan, and I enjoyed that documentary quite a bit as well. And with that, we are right at an hour. So yeah, I thought this was going to be a good one. I mean, the time flew by.
it did, yeah. We got in a lot of good stuff, and it was fun as usual.
Something I want to add real quick. We haven't done a listener request kind of show in a while. So if there's any topics any of you want us to cover or would like to hear us talk about, let us know.
Oh, yeah, that would be, yeah. Throw that out there. We can do something like that.
I know the lost position that you get into in the beat. Well, if you talk to the average teenager of today and you ask them what it is about rock and roll music that they like, and the first thing they'll say is the beat, the beat, the beat.
Everybody, thanks for listening again. And don't forget to, turn it up loud.